especially on the heels of the Charlotte Invitational, where PBD was, I believe, 10-0, 06 or something along those lines. You know, he was 9-0 in this event, I believe, and you can start to feel it, right? Like, you've been there before.
Oh, yeah.
Where you've had a very good start in a long tournament. You start picking up some losses. It reminds you of previous events, and suddenly you're stressing where you thought that this would be another easy breeze to the elimination rounds.
All right, so we're on game 3. Noah is going to be on the play this game. He is playing the 4-color Delver deck. This is the one, this seems to be in the style of the Eric Rill Delver decks.
Yeah, this is a 4-color list with Young Pyromancer, which is something that Eric Rill is a big fan of. Plays 4 main deck Stifles, a Fire Ice. This is very similar to Eric Rill's list, in fact.
All right, well, this should figure to still be a good matchup for Brian. We'll see how it plays out. Turn 1, Noah casts a Ponder. He does have a lot of action in his hand set up. We'll see how Brian responds. He has at least a Pyroblast, but he's going to lead off just on basic Island.
I think this matchup is slightly better for the 4-color Delver deck than, say, the Rug matchup is, because there's just more power in the 4-color list.
Yeah, Noah's going to go ahead and try to resolve a turn 2 Young Pyromancer. We'll see if that works. Brian is brainstorming in response to it, maybe seeing if he can find. He doesn't really have a counter. I don't believe he has a counter spell for it. I don't know if he wants. Don't think he wants to force it.
Well, he might have to. You know, this card's very threatening for Brian to play against. It is quickly lethal by itself. It almost forces a Terminus. It's also something that can overpower and treat the Angels, which is not true of something like Tarmogoyf.
We'll see where he goes from here. He has Stoneforge Mystic, Counterbalance, Spell Pierce, Pyroblast. A lot of tools available, but Young Pyromancer definitely a threat.
And Noah with Daze in hand, so if Brian commits a critical 2-mana card this turn and can't fight over this Daze, it is big trouble.
And we will see just that happen. Brian's going to try to make Stoneforge Mystic, but it'll be dazed. That makes an Elemental, picks up a land for Noah, and it's just going to get countered. And Brian already in a bad spot here.
Yeah, and this is what Young Pyromancer is, a unique threat. Not all of the Delver decks, of course, bring this to the table, but this is a card that forces Terminus. Swords to Plowshares is not enough to get him out of this if Noah has any number of spells next turn. Entreat the Angels cannot block this board. And so Brian's in a tough spot. This is something distinct about this card that things like Tarmogoyf simply cannot do.
Now, I'm wondering whether or not Brian knows that his opponent's on the 4-color version. He has a Rest in Peace in his hand that he has boarded in. That's traditionally good against Rug Delver decks, but I imagine not great against what Noah Walker is doing.
No, I mean, 4 Deathrite Shamans is the only threat that is impacted by this. The rest of his creature base is Delver Secrets, Young Pyromancer, and 2 copies of True Name Nemesis. So I don't know how the first 2 games have gone, obviously, but I think that certainly against this board, Rest in Peace is not something that Brian has much interest in.
Yeah, Brian just draws for the turn. He's going to need to try to set up a Terminus, as you mentioned. That's the sweeper of choice. I think if he can find one, he does have the ability to protect it with both a Red Blast and a Spell Pierce. So if he gets the appropriate mana, he'll definitely be able to fight that fight. But getting there is another thing altogether. He's going to play Volcanic Island, and now Rest in Peace will come out.
This does do a little work against Deathrite Shaman, so it's not a total loss for Brian. But with Noah's board the way it is, even just a 1-2 attacker is totally fine.
Yeah, and Noah's going to continue to develop his board. This is an end-step Brainstorm, making yet another 1-1.
And the really tough thing about this is, you know, it's so tough for Brian to initiate action because anytime Noah gets to play a counterspell, it's another trigger off the Young Pyromancer. So Brian's up against the wall a little bit to begin with, and he has to be very concerned anytime he casts anything because there's the possibility of it just getting countered and Noah getting a 1-1 for his troubles.
So Noah, he went ahead and Red Blasted the Brainstorm, so Noah didn't get to draw cards there. But on the untap, Noah's going to cast Ponder, making a 3rd Elemental token. And we're finding Daze and I believe Fire Ice on top of the deck. It looks like he's just going to have more fuel. And post Ponder makes another land, and he's going to be able to crash for 5 damage this turn, sending Brian down to 11. See another land drawn for Brian, so no help yet. It really is Terminus that he's going to need. He's going to need to get a Terminus fast and then win the counter over it. But I'm a little worried that even if Brian finds the Terminus, he'll have taken too much damage.
You see Noah, he's sitting on another Young Pyromancer as backup. He can reassemble this board.
Yeah, this board really only was a Young Pyromancer.
Yeah, it's you know, whether or not you want to play this card or Tarmogoyf, you know, usually those are the two things you're considering. Sometimes they seem kind of interchangeable. This is one matchup where it is not.
You see here a counterbalance for Brian, a swing for 5 from Noah that puts Brian down to 6, and he'll just pass the turn. He's sitting on some counter magic. He has a Pyroblast, a Daze. Looks like he got a Golgari Charm. What a a lot of colors going on, but he can actually cast them all.
Golgari Charm is a bit of an odd duck, but there are enchantments in Brian's list, and you know, you can also respect the possibility of Supreme Verdict here as well. No utility against Terminus, but it feels like there's enough stuff going on here where it's helpful.
We'll see what Brian does here. Did not find the sweeper he needed. You can't realistically go to 1 and expect to win from that.
I think he's debating about whether or not he should brainstorm now, trying to find action. You know, is Supreme Verdict in his list, for example? Or
do not believe he has one.
Or does he need to save the brainstorm for Noah's turn and hope that the top card of his deck is exactly Terminus?
Neither particularly appealing options. So he's went for the main phase brainstorm to find action. And I don't believe he found the Terminus anyway. So that.
And keep in mind, even if Noah's spells get countered from the counterbalance trigger, they're still generating 1/1 tokens.
Correction on life total, Brian at 5, so this is a lethal. Yeah, the creatures are swinging for 6, not for 5, so it's a lethal swing that Noah has next turn. Yeah, it looks to be pretty tough here for Brian. I don't see a way out. He does have counterbalance assembled, but Noah able to stick that young Pyromancer just really went the distance.
Yeah. So potent against a deck like Brian's. Especially backed by counter magic. I mean, that's just a very tough recipe.
Yeah, puts 2 back. We'll see where he goes here. And I'm wondering if he can if he's going to be able to survive to the next turn. I'm not convinced he can.
Does he have? He has a. Okay, so he has. Again, Brian is setting up the possibility next turn. He can shuffle his deck. Just activate his Divining Top and hope that the top card is Terminus.
Yeah, an interesting thing will be whether or not he decides to spin the top first. It will take away a mana, so he'll be able to play around less. However, it does greatly increase the chance he finds the Terminus.
Yeah.
As we know, that means Brian will be going to at most 4. He's still in danger of being burned out, even if everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, and I think that Noah here needs to consider casting some spell here at the end of the turn. Probably the Golgari Charm on anything, just so he doesn't fail to produce lethal if Brian has 1 removal spell. Because right now, if Brian has a Swords to Plowshares, if Noah just untaps and attacks, Brian does get to go to next turn. Although now that's not the case because the fetch line is getting cracked.
Yeah, Brian's at 4, so Noah doesn't need that creature anymore.
So now Noah is not forced to initiate the action. He can simply untap and attack.
Yeah, force Brian first to have the Terminus. Looks like Brian will be able to spin top and play Terminus and be able to pay for days. So if he can find the Terminus, I think he's going to get to do it. But you know, that's only the beginning if he manages to find that.
That is step 1 of clawing back into this. And there's another young Pyromancer in Noah's hand to reassemble.
Let's see where he goes here. So we pass on to, I believe we're still on Brian's turn. He's going to go ahead and spin top, leaving up both jewels. And it's really just Terminus or bust. And
looks like it's just a plow up there. I don't think there's a Terminus.
Yeah, that's not going to be good enough.
And now with that fetch land cracked, 1 Source of Plowshares is not enough.
And there we have it. Noah Walker, 2-1 defeats Braun Duin. Noah moves to 10-2-1 still in. Brian, after a 9-0 start, has fallen a little bit. He now has 3 losses and a draw. May